Welcome in. It's the Draft Pod on a Wednesday. Me and J Mike together once again. We missed you last week, J Mike. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right, man. It's been a long week. Got a lot of stuff going on, but it's good to talk college football. So I'm excited to get into this, and I think we've got some kind of fun, topics planned for the day. Some stuff we haven't talked about in a while, so it's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
How you doing?
for sure. I'm doing good, man. I've been busy. Honestly, last thing that's been on my mind has been some of this stuff, but I always like to talk to you, especially with the Broncos and the season they're having. This podcast every week keeps me centered, makes me feel like there is a way forward. These problems can be solved. There is talent out there. And I mean, just look at this season in the NFL, how quickly Texans, Cardinals, and some of these squads have turned it around. Should give us some hope, even in the bleakest of times for Broncos country.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this pod's a lot of fun because as frustrating as the outlook is at the moment, as annoying as this season has been, it's a good reminder that there's a ton of talent out there, and the path forward is through this draft. There's a lot of guys who you could bring in on cost-effective contracts and, really improve the depth of this roster within a couple of years. So that's exciting. There's a ton of guys in this 2024 class that are really intriguing. And
yeah,
it's one of those bittersweet things where it sucks to watch your favorite team lose. Like, I think some people, when you talk about embracing a rebuild, think you're rooting to lose, which I guess in a sense you kind of are, but it's not like you're sitting there cheering for the other team. You're always going to root for your team. It's just embracing the fact that this is the most productive way forward. It's the only way out. And frankly, this team's got a lot of deficit to make up for when it comes to talent. So they need these draft picks. They need to embrace the rebuild. And I'm excited to, frankly, have a ton to talk about these next couple months because the NFL season, Broncos aren't really going to factor too much into it.
No, exactly. I mean, thank God for this podcast, truly, because it was built for seasons like this. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think it's appreciated, talked about enough, but like plain and simple, this Broncos team is in a 2-year window of things are only going to get rougher, not better necessarily with just the cap constraints and where they're at. And so, cap compensation, draft compensation, cap, just having more cap, not being 30 million over the cap, all that is built in to the names that are being thrown around as far as players that might be dealt and got rid of. So when we were talking about putting together this show for today, you were like, well, why don't we talk about kind of the best replacements out there from the college football and draft ranks for the guys that are being talked about, are being floated as potentially on the trade block for the Broncos. You threw out Courtland Sutton as an example name, and I'd start right there with number 14. You kind of need that big outside wide receiver. That's the NFL for you, right? Like you kind of need that X, that number one guy. Who would you see as the most intriguing candidates to replace Sutton if he were traded?
As far as like trying to fulfill that bigger body type receiver, I think there are two guys that really jump out to me. And the big one is Rome Odunze of Washington. His combination of size and speed, frankly, it reminds you somewhat of watching Courtland Sutton at SMU. I mean, he's a very complete receiver. I think he runs a more impressive route tree at this stage of his career than I would have said about Sutton coming out of SMU. And
better athlete
just a freak.
Too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you just shouldn't be able to move that swiftly. I mean, his lateral agility for a guy with that size is insane. His hands are so soft. He's just a stud. The other guy I'll throw out is Keon Coleman of Florida State. maybe not quite as thick, but he's still like 6'4", 210.
Yes.
A guy that can go up and get the ball in the red zone. I
Yeah.
think both of those guys would be awesome replacements if you moved on from Sutton.
What about a teammate of Keon Coleman? I'm gonna do. We're getting me out of there. Johnny Wilson, who's just huge. I mean, he's really almost built more like a tight end than he is a wide receiver. He's a guy who I think could be around later in the draft potentially. The two guys you mentioned. I think those are top 15 picks. Johnny Wilson might even be around by the second, third. Might even be more of a tight end type. Guys like that, I think, could be really intriguing as well, right? Because I did preface this as like a true number one wide receiver. You also just kind of want a few more big bodies in the mix and guys who can just make plays and be big targets for Russ or whatever other quarterbacks on the roster.
I love the value there. He's a guy that I think you could probably get in more like the third, fourth round versus late first, second. There's a lot of guys in this receiver class that have really started to pop out, which is awesome because I think there wasn't a ton of brand recognition outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. coming in. And obviously, I mean, if you could land him, he's a generational receiver prospect.
Yeah.
Can line up anywhere on the field. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a like Courtland Sutton replacement in terms of the role you would want him to fulfill in the offense. But, I mean, he can do some of that stretch the field for you. A guy I think, as far as value receivers go, and maybe more of a replacement for Judy than Sutton, is actually a local prospect in Torrey Horton at CSU. I mean, another guy who I think you could get, second round, third round. You're not going to have to take him in the first round, I don't think. He's going to run a 4.3. I mean, he's blazing fast.
You think? That fast?
I honestly do. I really do. I mean, he's already got the fastest. He ran over 22 miles an hour in that CU game.
It's true.
That's Tyreek Hill type speed.
No, 22 is faster than any time anyone's ran in the NFL this season, and the fastest is like 21.6 by Devin A-Chain.
Which is just absurd. And like when you watch some of those guys, and the ball was not in his hands, which is, something you could nitpick. He was chasing a receiver down, a DB down in that CU game after he got the interception, but it is in full pads, it's not the underwear Olympics. At the very least, he's running a fast 4.4, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, he's just a really complete receiver, and I think what he's shown this year with the ability to make guys miss in the open field, the yards after the catch, I think that's really intriguing for NFL scouts because you knew he was a deep threat. You knew he had that blazing speed, but he's a guy that can be a 3-down receiver for you, move the chains, a threat in those intermediate targets. He can take a quick screen to the house. I mean, he already has 2 punt returns for touchdowns. So, like, this is a dude that can just do it all for you. And again, I think, kind of like a Michael Gallup a couple years ago, you could get him in like this late second, early third round.
Well, I think he would fit really nicely. And if a guy like Torrey Horton runs a 4.3 legitimately, and you put on his tape, you look at his production, all that kind of stuff, it's gonna be scary because the dude could go in the first round. He's had that kind of production and has that kind of skills as we have this black bar in between us here. On the defensive side, who would you target first as far as guys, that might be on the block, that might be moved on from? There he is.
Yeah. I would say Josie Jewell is a guy that you would throw out there. Maybe Alex Singleton, just because you got to get faster at linebacker. I mean, I know you already have Drew Sanders on the roster, and I'd like to see him moving forward. But I think either of those guys you could consider moving on from. And at that point, I mean, maybe you're looking at like Jeremiah Trotter Jr. of Clemson, or like Tommy Eichenberg of Ohio State, something like that. But I think you just got to get younger, faster, and frankly cheaper.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to find a better role for Drew Sanders right now. Cedric Gray over at North Carolina is very intriguing as well. And Jeremiah Trotter Jr.'s teammate, Barrett Carter, very intriguing. There's some talent. I wonder if a guy like Dallas Turner, who would feel very Drew Sanders, Micah Parsons, even Nick Bonito-esque as a guy who it's like, man, it's just an athlete. Best way to use this athlete at the second level might be to just have him pin his ears back and go get after the quarterback, which is what Dallas Turner, an edge rusher at Alabama, is kind of seen as. He's very athletic, sideline to sideline. He's really, he's got good length. He moves well. I wonder if there could be a future where those kind of pieces are interchangeable on the Broncos defense. Two more big names I want to get into. One's Justin Simmons. And this was one of the toughest ones to go through this upcoming draft class and feel good about kind of the replacements I'm finding, feel good about the kind of guys that you could replace Justin with, who obviously is such a reliable last line of defense, has been just incredible in his Broncos career thus far. It's not a great safety class. Andrew Makuba from Clemson has stood out. Dude has length. He's all over the place. I think he could be a reliable last line of defense. A lot of people are high on Cameron Kitchens, the Miami safety, who you and I have talked about before. Though I don't know that he's a great, Simmons, last line of defense, free safety,
he feels more
single
like a
high
Kareem
type
replacement than Simmons to me.
Exactly. 100%. And I mean, Kareem's another one, whether you trade him or not, you got to find some solutions to be able to move on from him and not be so reliant on a guy that you've signed at the beginning of the offseason every year, or, the beginning of camp, basically, when even the draft's done and all other free agents have been signed. And then the second he goes out, he feels like a key piece because your defense can't function without him. That's a huge problem. And later on, Tyler Nubin's a guy from Minnesota who's a safety who's popped. Javon Bullard, the safety at Georgia. He's not as the kind of phenom that Stokes, their sophomore safety, is. But, Bullard is a very good safety. And that's the thing about safety. You can find guys later on that are serviceable, even though they might not feel like the next Ed Reed, Earl Thomas to you when you're scouting them from college. Cole Bishop, Utah, another safety I'd watch for.
Glad you threw him out. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Really complete player.
Yes. He plays really well. Honestly, that USC secondary has a lot of guys who, in uniform look good. I can talk myself into, but then it's 3 quarters in, it's okay, I actually need a safety who allows fewer passing yards than this. Before we move on to some kind of hot seat talk for coaches in the Power 5, Garrett Bowles feels like the other big one here, right? What getting rid of any of these guys during the season means for you is truly devastating on field. It's truly embracing the tank because of how bad losing one of these guys makes you, if not multiple ones. And that includes
but you're
Garrett.
0-3 at home. Look at the schedule. This isn't getting better. You lost to the winnable teams. You've played the winnable portion of your schedule, and you dropped the ball completely. It's
true. It's absolutely true. So then the other one's Garrett Bowles. Olu Fashanu, where the Broncos are drafting now, if they're not going after a franchise quarterback, could very much be in play. The Penn State left tackle who's barely allowed a pressure in his college career. He's really a unique combination of size, length, movement, skills, just how calmly and everything's aligned when he moves. He's exactly the kind of pass protecting tackle I would want. Joe Alt from Notre Dame, we've talked about him quite a bit. Joe Alt is really fun. Joe Alt would fit what Sean Payton likes to do because he's such a good athlete. He's such a good run blocker for an offensive tackle that's the size that he is. So those are the big names if you're drafting high. Plain and simple. There's not getting out of those two. Jordan Morgan's the guy from Arizona we've talked about a little bit. J.C. Latham, the right tackle from Alabama. is another guy who might be in the mix, and I know the right tackle from Oklahoma is getting some buzz. What I'm trying to say is after the top couple guys in this class, we're already into like the right tackle crop. Um, and it's a problem. It's a problem. I know people think that replacing PS2 is going to be tough, but replacing Garrett Bowles and finding someone who can be a suitable blindside protector here in the immediate future is going to be a really tough task. Matt, I'd love to know which of the offensive tackles or O linemen we talked about you think sucks. I'm guessing Joe Alt. I know, especially with the McGlinchey signing, there can be a little Notre Dame offensive line skepticism right now. But I don't know, man. Alt looks really good for the Irish. He looks really impressive, no doubt. And then, I mean, in the interior O-line, you can always get better. Guys like Cedric Van Pran, the center for Georgia, he's outstanding. Donovan Jackson, the Ohio State offensive lineman, he's absolutely massive. Actually, on the O tackles, he's not a great Garrett Bowles replacement, but Kingsley Sumataila out of BYU is a guy that's really stood out to me, that really has some skill to his game, really powerful, and could, plausibly do some things in the league in the near future. Oh, Matt says Garrett Bowles. Yeah. Do we have Justin back? We're trying to get him back on. Okay. And then after that, I think DJ Jones is a name that's been thrown out. I would hate to lose DJ Jones, but again, the cap constraints that the Broncos might be facing this offseason, being $30 million over the cap, could force you into all sorts of moves like that. Top defensive tackles in the class, you go to the Big Ten where Jerzavon Newton out of Illinois and Michael Hall from Ohio State. Newton is long. He's built like a defensive end. Think of like a Calais Campbell type interior defensive lineman who's just, a true like stud, just long, athletic, gets after it. I haven't always been super impressed by him this season, but last season he was on fire. Michael Hall, more of a bowling ball. He's going to win with leverage. He's just going to be the low man and like a devastating penetrator, really good at disrupting and living in the opposing backfield. Mason Smith, LSU, he was a superstar as a freshman at LSU. Missed all of last season, a bit slow to get back at it. And, that LSU defense, a bit of a tough eval right now. Chris Jenkins, the guy who's gotten a lot of buzz the last couple of weeks out of Michigan. And shoot, I know I talked last week about the defensive tackle from Notre Dame really gathering a lot of buzz and doing a lot of stuff. Man, it hurts to lose any of these guys. It really does, because not all of these are 1-for-1 replacements, really. And that's going to make it tough. Like all the guys I just mentioned, you'd love to pair with DJ Jones on an interior defensive line front, not have to kind of go away from. J-Mac, can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. It just, the audio went out all of a sudden, and I didn't want to interrupt you. But we're good.
It's okay. No, you're all good. No worries at all. Yeah. Mike's better. You're all as well. I just went through some DJ Jones replacements, potential as well. Again, decent defensive tackle class, not great. And as I was saying, it's all, as I go through that list, it's all guys where it's like, man, what I'd really love is to pair someone like this with a DJ Jones, not have to replace them. It's just tough. You're going to have to get worse before you get better. Is kind of what this exercise is teaching me.
Spot on. I mean, I think it's going to be that case for a lot of these positions. Like if you decide to move on, I mean, obviously Pat Surtain would be the easy one. Like you're clearly going to get worse there, but like Simmons, you're not going to find a replacement that can do everything Justin Simmons can do and pair, with another safety. It's just, They're in a tough spot. I mean, they're expensive. They've got a lot of guys who are hard to move because they
Yeah.
probably got deals that were above their current market value, and you're gonna
Yeah.
take a loss on some of these investments, and it is what it is.
It's true. It's true. It's a tough spot to be in, but ultimately it is what it is. You can't whine about it. You're gonna have to find a way to move on and build a sustainable team that's gonna be able to have some real success.
I mean,
Let's
the
hit
Broncos
the
got fat. Go to the gym. You gotta
right.
you gotta do the work.
Right.
Like it doesn't just go away.
You're exactly right. And no one's gonna feel sorry for you. Like
Not at all.
when we were winning Super Bowls and contending year in, year out, there was plenty of teams in the exact situation the Broncos are in, and no one felt sorry for them. So that's just the bottom line. Let's hit the hot seat stuff on the other side here real quick, and then we'll get into some games where like Romo Dunze and a ton of dudes have big time matchups this week. All those big time matchups, Game Time has you covered. I know it's tough on Broncos, but Game Time has you covered on that as well. If you just use our code DNVR to sign up, you'll get $20 off. You can find phenomenal deals on last minute tickets, and there's the Game Time guarantee, which means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Avs are back. Nuggets are back. Rams, Buffs. It's been awesome. Go to some live sports, enjoy it. And concert tickets, shows, you name it. Stand up. Game Time has you covered. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
If you do get hooked up with a sweet deal on tickets, you might be thinking to yourself, I need a new fit, I need a new hat, I need a new accessory for the game. Hit up our homies at FOCO, leading manufacturer of sports and entertainment merchandise. They've got a product line that includes apparel, accessories, novelty items, pretty much anything you could ever need. They have the coolest bobblehead selection.
Yeah.
Shout out to FOCO. They always have our back. They're going to have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the podcast description for all non-presale items. Use that code DNVR for 10% off. We love FOCO. We also love Breckenridge Brewery. I mean, they have been with us since day one. I mean, they're the homies since day one.
True homies. Yeah, you hooked us all up with a bunch of Breck beer last week when you came in. That was amazing. My uncle was in town. We cracked a couple open. It's great stuff. Thank you, brother, and thank you to Breck Brewery for always delivering.
Shout out to Breck Brew. They always have my back. They're going to have your back. There's no better way to watch a game than having an ice-cold Breck Brew in hands. You know, it's funny, when the Dolphins were scoring what felt like 1,000 points on my beloved Denver Broncos, the only thing that gave me a little bit of solace was that ice-cold Mountain Beach hitting my lips and numbing the pain. Make sure you're drinking responsibly, but hey, Broncos games are a lot more fun with Breck Brew. I love Breck Brew. You love Breck Brew. Hit up that Breck Beer locator at breckbrew.com to find a brew near you.
Damn straight. Okay, Justin, I don't want to go too long because I want to have enough time for this full week 6 slate of college football. Did I get that right? Is week 7? Yeah.
Week 7, I think. Yeah.
I'll check the other app in a sec to make sure. Hot seat. Who are the guys who are sitting on full-blown scorchers right now? Of course, we've had a couple firings already, Pat Fitzgerald and Mel Tucker. So Northwestern and Michigan State, which is a big one, already vacant seats to be filled. What other vacant seats could be coming up as this season progresses?
Yeah, I focused primarily on Power 5 guys, but I will throw out some Mountain West coaches as well at the end.
Love it.
I'm going to start with Billy Napier at Florida. He's 10-9 over the last 19. The one thing that may save him is their 2024 recruiting class is currently top 10 in the country. I think it's even top 5. So, I mean, recruiting the lifeblood of a program, maybe that buys him another year, but these aren't patient people. Yeah.
It's a big deal in Florida. We remember McElwain won the SEC East like 2 or 3 years, but was fired because they didn't feel like he was bringing in the big enough recruits. It really matters. And I mean, it really hurt Napier in that program losing out on, was it Jaden Rashada coming into the season and having that whole NIL promise fiasco go down. He's at Arizona State now. I like that. You were a bit of a Napier believer. I'm more of a Dan Mullen guy who I felt like got the hook way too soon at the Gators.
It's just a horrible job, to be honest. Like, I kind of almost put Florida in that Auburn territory where you're expected to be like Georgia or Alabama every year. And I know Florida at its peak, it could be. It's a better gig than Auburn.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like one of those spots where it's unrealistic. An 8-win season has you on the hot seat in Gainesville if you're not, consistently competing for the title.
It's a tough spot, no doubt. I do feel like it's on the short list of places that maybe should expect to win year in, year out, like Bama, like Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, like on that kind of short list, Ohio State.
I mean, it probably should be with the high school talent that you have.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I like.
The next one I'm going to throw out, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M. Now, obviously, the money is a big factor there.
It's massive.
But they got oil money out there. And frankly, you could make an argument that with what TCU did last year, with Texas back on the rise, like they're the most. I mean, Jimbo had double-digit win seasons in 6 of 8 years at Florida State. He's yet to do it at A&M. I mean, they're perennial underperformers. They have these top recruiting classes year after year, and they just have not lived up to the hype whatsoever.
No, they haven't. And he had a window, man. He had a window where they were positioned to be one of the big dogs in the SEC. They didn't take advantage of that. He had a window where they were the big dogs in the state of Texas. I think that's kind of closed on them. They had a window where they were the only Texas school in the SEC, and that's closing on them very soon as well. It's been tough, man. And the way Jimbo has acted has been very weird. The fact that he hasn't figured out the quarterback is odd. But ultimately, this is a school that's paid premium dollar for some high-end recruiting classes, which Jimbo has brought in to his credit. They're expecting a lot more than this. He'll be interesting. To me, this is more what you're talking about with Napier at Florida, where it's like, look, I know it's not everything you dreamed of. It's not maybe what you thought based on some of the recruiting class rankings. But like, you're A&M. You have not been this great program the last few years. Let Jimbo try to build something. Stay a little patient, because I'm not sure how much more you're excited. Like, I can't remember, Johnny Manziel aside, maybe a 2-year stretch with Sumlin, A&M hasn't been very good in my lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Like, outside of a couple of small stretches there, I mean, they haven't been more consistently relevant than even Texas Tech, who had their run under Mike Leach in the Big 12.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Exactly. It's crazy. So I'll throw out Cristobal, which after last week, that's another school that has unlimited money apparently post 2020. And yeah, Cristobal's done a good job. Very similar to Jimbo, honestly. Very good job on the trail. They actually get that big win against A&M, right? Tyler Van Dyke goes off. But he loses this game that was won. It was won this past week by deciding to run the ball when they could have kneeled it and ended the game. Had a running back on 99 yards, try to get him to 100, fumbled it. And Georgia Tech, I mean, maybe the most egregious thing is how they played defensively. That was disgusting, the defensive showing they had. Like, I just mentioned Kitchens. Like, you should be embarrassed being part of that secondary, getting torched like that. Am I being fair, unfair? Cristobal feels like a fun one to talk about, though.
I mean, they're 4-1, so like it's
Yeah.
tough. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say his seat is as scorching as some of these other guys, but I
Right.
mean, Miami, kind of like Texas, is in that territory where they have invested heavily in trying to get back.
Yep.
And at some point, they need returns on that investment or it's going to turn quickly. And much like we said about Florida, with the local talent you have at the high school level in that state, especially South Florida, like this is a program that should be in a 9-10 win
Yes.
per year minimum. Like the fact that they have
100%.
fallen for this long is just, it's unacceptable. So I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of these programs that have been in holes for a long time now. Miami, Texas, Nebraska, but Texas and Miami, like you don't have the benefit of saying, well, we're in Lincoln, Nebraska. What do you expect from us? I mean, there are just no excuses.
No, there truly are none. Those are kind of the big ones to me. Who else do you have on your short list?
I'll just throw out a couple names. We don't have to dive that far into them, but Tom Allen of Indiana. The Hoosiers have not done anything since going 6-2 in 2020. Dana Holgerson of Houston. They have made a bowl the last 2 years, but
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's a desire for something more, especially with SMU making a push into the Power Five. I think you run the risk of kind of missing your window there, like we've talked about with some of those other schools.
Yeah, I mean, he
Sam
left the
Pittman,
Power
Arkansas.
5 for Houston, right? So that's an interesting one. I'm a big Dana guy for sure.
I am too, and I think he's a good coach. It's just one of those places they should be expected to win. We'll see. I mean, obviously they're in the Big 12 now. Maybe Dana gets that boost from a recruiting standpoint. You're able to sign some guys that you maybe couldn't these last couple of years. It'll be interesting to see, but I just think Houston fans, again, passionate college football. They've got a lot of money when it comes to the donor base. The expectations are going to be a little higher.
Yeah, you're in the city of Houston too, you know. I mean, okay. I love that, man. Let's get into these picks. Let's start with Oregon, Washington. It's 8 against 7.
Game of the week.
Yeah, it's the game of the week. It's, I mean, pros on, especially offensively. You have a lot of pro prospects. Obviously, the two quarterbacks, Nix against Penix. Watch the wide receivers, Troy Franklin against Roma Dunze, and all the other talent you've got. You know, Oregon's running back was incredible. This is a great game, and the book is giving us a straight home 3 for the Huskies. I have the Huskies going to the Final Four in the playoffs, and it's all because this was a home game, and I think they've got just a slightly more dangerous talent on offense. And defensively, I think they can hold their own, though I do think Oregon is a little better on all three phases.
Yeah, I'd give Oregon the slight nod defensively. Their team speed has just been so impressive. Seeing
Really
the way
impressive.
they've flown around in some of these games is awesome. And frankly, I undervalued Oregon coming into this year because of Bo Nix, who has outperformed my expectations of him. I wouldn't say I'm a full-on Bo Nix guy, but he's doing some legitimate things in terms of decision-making, progressing through his reads that he just didn't really show at Auburn. So I think it's going to be a really big game. Michael Penix Jr. is balling right now, man. Like,
just putting on an absolute clinic, a left-handed cannon, maybe the best deep ball in the country. And this is a year where, like, I've never seen college kids throw the deep ball the way this group of kids throws the deep. Shador, Caleb Williams, Drake May. And then there's Penix is just throwing like 40-yard darts on a frozen rope. He's insane, man.
Penix might be, out of these 2024 guys, assuming you don't have the number 1 pick, he might be like my top Broncos target. I mean, he's insane.
He's up there. Drake May's really freaking good.
I was going to say
thinking,
Drake May's the other one, but
yes, sir. I was trying to think like, so we're both on Washington -3. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got Washington as the number 3 team in the country in my top 25.
We're in agreement on that. We're in agreement. I was going to talk Drake May because North Carolina hosts Miami. They're 3.5-point favorites, number 12 against 25. This would have been an even better matchup if, Miami just ends the game last week. They're probably they're ranked in the top 15. Drake May, I was thinking about this. I think the comp is Andrew Luck. Like, I'm not saying maybe he's as good a prospect as Andrew Luck, but he's got a really good frame. What you like most about him is how he operates in the pocket. Really great arm, but he's not a stiff. He's actually a great athlete. He's a phenomenal athlete. He moves really well.
I like that comp. Yeah. I would have never put it together, but just kind of thinking through it. I mean, you think about what that Stanford offense looked like under Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
And it is a lot of that. It's just standing tall in the pocket, taking advantage of play action opportunities. He's got a gun. Some of the deep balls he's been able to throw this year are insane. Give me North Carolina just because I love Drake May. I think Mac Brown's got it rolling with them. They've got some swag to him. That said, it does feel like classic rebound opportunity after Miami loses a stupid game. You come back, you get revenge. You beat the quarterback that everybody's obsessing over.
Yep.
I don't know if I'll put money on this game, but I can't wait to watch it.
No, I do think Miami is the side. The next game we're gonna talk about is the exact same scenario. It's Notre Dame USC. Notre Dame coming off a tough loss. SC, kind of maybe not playing up to their potential. And it's a letdown game where Notre Dame's the favorite, which you would never. It's the lower ranked team favorite. It's a classic that we've been talking about. And then, so yeah, I'm taking Miami. Watch for tackle Leonard Taylor the third for the Canes, and Cam Kitchens, who we talked about, the talented safety, fearless the way he plays downhill. USC at Notre Dame in South Bend with the Irish 2.5-point favorites. A 2-loss Notre Dame team as 2.5-point favorites to the undefeated number 10 team.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
How much do you trust that USC defense on the road?
0.
That's just what worries me. It's going to get them at some point. They should have lost Arizona this past weekend if it wasn't for just a Hercules-type performance from Caleb Williams, who keeps pulling this team, on his back. They're going to get him at some point. That said, I think the difference in talent at the skill positions between USC and Notre Dame is significant enough that I'm still going to roll with the Trojans, but they're not going to run the table this year. They're just not. That defense is too incomplete.
Yeah, I kind of felt all along that this was a set up to be a letdown for the Trojan season. The book's telling you everything, man. They're telling you everything you need to know. I've done this 3 consecutive weeks. I did this with taking Wazoo to beat Oregon State. Then I did it last week to take UCLA to beat Wazoo. The book knows. You don't know more than the book. The book knows more than you. Let the book guide you. The book is saying Notre Dame. Hammer away on Notre Dame. I think they are way too talented on defense, and they've got a lot of talent on offense for this to be. They're definitely the more complete team. Definitely.
Oh yeah, it's not even close to me. Basically, if you're picking USC, you're picking Caleb Williams to be Superman, which I guess I am in this instance.
He did it last year against Notre Dame. I think it was 6 tuds, 400 yards. He guaranteed himself the Theismann in that week. So we've seen it. I think the Irish are ready.
That defense is soft, dude.
They're terrible.
Soft.
Yeah,
they don't
awful.
have any interest in tackling. Hartman's a great quarterback.
Yeah.
At home, oh man, you're talking me into it. Coming off of the big loss to Louisville, coming back at home,
exactly.
Nobody's gonna pick them despite the fact that they're favorites. Game day, it will be a unanimous USC. Oh yeah, I'm with you, Notre Dame.
People are gonna hammer away on the Trojans. It's just the other thing is, you said we haven't seen this before. This is every year with Lincoln Riley. The defense is just so awful. It's he's got a contending offense with a defense that's not even in the same realm as the rest of the top 15 in the country. It's It's honestly kind of sad. It's a little pathetic.
I mean, you look at that Pac-12: Washington State, Oregon State, UCLA, Utah, even Cal at times have all been much more complete defensively.
100%. Let's close it out with a Big Ten bout. UCLA at Oregon State. Guess the line on this for me. Have you seen it already?
I have not. It's in Corvallis.
It's in Corvallis, yeah.
I'm gonna go Oregon State 3.5 by 3.5.
Jesus, this guy just knows ball, man. It is Oregon State minus 3.5. So this worked better last week when I did this with Jake for the UCLA Washington State game, and he guessed like Wazoo -4, and it was actually UCLA minus 3.5. This one does feel harder to read. My heart does say just go with the home team. But I do worry that this Oregon State offense maybe not, they're missing Musgrave. I don't think they have that same identity they had a year ago. And that UCLA defense has shown me some stuff this year, and especially last week against Wazoo. I mean, they've got talent both sides of the ball, and they've got a hell of a defense.
I think I'm in on UCLA. They showed me a lot this past weekend. I watched a lot of that UCLA Washington State game, almost all of it, and
they showed me a lot too, man.
Man, I mean, obviously their front seven is really intriguing, but they can run the ball on you. And Chip Kelly, like, I think he's going to dial up some creative stuff to keep Oregon State on their heels. They gave up 30 to Cal this past weekend. It's not like, they're killing it defensively.
It's in Corvallis is the one thing.
It's the thing.
It's in Corvallis. It's
a great home field atmosphere.
These SoCal kids just like wilt like little flowers when they go to Corvallis. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's just like Salt Lake. I mean, it's Southern Cali boy kryptonite. Give me Oregon State to win, UCLA to cover.
I like that. I'm going to ride with you on that. Though, you know what? Give me the dog in UCLA. I just talked about how the book steered me right on every single one of these matchups. This one, I'm going against the grain. Give me the Bruins. Chip, I love you, man. I don't talk about it enough. Chip Kelly, I love you. You're a great coach. Big fan. Good stuff.
He's where he belongs. He's a college coach. He's where he's found it. And honestly, it's great to have him rolling. I understand that his NFL tenure soured him on people, not the best personality at times, but I mean, he's freaking brilliant when it comes to offensive innovation. And this UCLA team is damn good on both sides of the ball. They can run the ball. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit my mic. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. D-line's awesome. Latu at linebacker. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's a stud. Or his first name, excuse me. But yeah, it's going to be awesome.
No, that's going to be a great matchup. Those are all ranked on ranked matchups. There's a few other that were intriguing, but we got to get out of here. J Mike, thank you for doing this. Thank you to producer Alyssa for figuring out all our technical issues on this one. We'll be back next week. Bye.